The political climate today is a hot button topic for so many people in our audience. There's so many different perspectives, different facts and fiction, and varied personalities in American politics. It can all be very difficult to navigate.
Today we have a special guest panelist who is going to help us get to the bottom of just what the hell has been going on. University of Connecticut political science graduate, political trend forecaster, and American politics guru, Maura Caroll is here to sort this all out. Let's welcome her to the show. Yes! Thank you. So let's get into politics, Maura. What are your thoughts about the 2020 election?
It's a whole mess. Mm-hmm. I started studying politics when things were really like fun and light during the Obama era, where like there was some stuff going on, but who cared? He was fun. Right. And like it wasn't absolute turmoil. And now I've just fallen into like it's an everyday nightmare. And I'm so far in it now that like I just can't escape.
So we've got Bernie Sanders,
yes,
Kamala Harris.
Bernie needs to take several seats.
You think so?
Cory Booker. Bernie, well, he raised $6 million in 24 hours.
Yeah, because Democrats cannot learn their lesson. Well, he actually also, yesterday, his campaign announced that they had 1 million sign-ons, like people, signing up in support of him, and over 300,000 of those people were not supporters in the 2016 election. So he gained, that's according to his campaign, but that's a lot of people.
Right. What is the momentum behind Bernie Sanders? Is it Bernie, or is it Bernie can beat Trump, or is it the first person that we really know and recognize that is stepping into the arena?
So Bernie, in 2016, let's go way back to 2008. In the Democratic primary in 2008, it was Obama and Hillary Clinton. Right. And they were basically the same policy-wise. It was more of a popularity contest in that sense. They differed, of course, a little bit. But in 2016, there were really like fundamental policy differences between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. And he was this candidate who was running this nationwide campaign of, Medicare for all, debt-free college, free, public university, really a democratic socialist campaign. And we hadn't seen that momentum in such a long time. And young people really got behind Bernie.
Right.
And, but Bernie is 77.
Yeah.
Okay. And but we do have to give him credit that his ideas from 2016, where people were kind of shaking their head out, every single Democratic candidate is running on a Medicare for All platform, on a, free 4-year university, improving education, a Green New Deal, so they're all, it's Bernie's platform basically, and they all just took like a different variation of it.
Oh, that's cool.
As someone who's really petty, I would love to see Bernie and Trump go up against each other in a general election, because I could stop watching Bravo at that point. It would be like a Housewives reunion times 1,000. But as someone who enjoys a functioning government and a country not in complete turmoil, I would not like to see that.
So who do you think that so far has put their hat in the ring? What do you think about Kamala?
Kamala Harris, she's in between, she's in between Bernie and the center. You know what I mean? She's kind of right in the middle of Democrats. She endorses big liberal ideas, again, like, really boosting education, climate change reform, sensible gun laws, gun reform. But she backtracked a little bit in the beginning. She came out and she unequivocally said that she really stands for Medicare for all. It's something that is really important to her. And then, a couple days later, she kind of was like, well, I would look at other ideas, and I'm not going to completely get rid of private health care. So she has that.
What about Cory Booker?
Cory Booker, Kirsten Gillibrand, and Amy Klobuchar are essentially the same candidate, right. As well as Kamala Harris. You can kind of throw her in there. Maybe not Amy Klobuchar. Maybe she's a little bit more to the center. But everything is very nice right now. Right. We're a year out from the Iowa caucus.
Right.
I'm still recovering from 2016, so I don't know how I'm going to do this again. But
I hate to cut you off. What does it take to really, if you were I don't want to get like DMs of like death threats, but what does it take to like mount a successful front against President Donald Trump? Like what is it going to take? I don't think anyone really knows. No one knows.
That is so far above my pay grade. I have no. The problem is that he's not a normal Republican candidate who, first of all, there are things now that like SNL isn't even funny anymore because they're just going on there and just saying exactly what he said verbatim. Like you could match the transcripts. And so he's not, a normal Republican candidate who has, conservative fiscal policies, but still is able to, talk about economic inequality and maybe, consider climate change. And he's just he's an insane person. He's crazy. And so I don't know.
So politics is a whole power game. It's a whole power game. So what kind of candidate would be like the perfect candidate? Because I know a lot of the times from, I'm not as smart as you are, but I know that with politics and in order to run, you have to get different favors from different people to get certain things started. So would you say a candidate that would be more powerful and for the people would be someone who is not getting all these different favors and they're just running on just pure, just wanting people
That's not
to
even
do that?
possible, maybe. I don't know.
Why isn't it possible?
Well, so to go back to the candidates now that have already announced, kind of running on Bernie's whole notion of like taking down special interest groups, not accepting money from big corporations, kind of taking down the big banks, and so the Democratic field right now is interesting because they're not taking that big money, and the Republicans have a lot of big money donors and kind of almost like an endless supply.
Right.
And they really bought their way into politics.
Right.
And so, take Elizabeth Warren, for example. She's really focusing on running a populist campaign, which is, the power from the people, really just focusing on grassroots and, bringing democracy back to, America as a whole and not taking on any kind of special interest money, any super PAC money, any, corporate donations. And Elizabeth Warren has a history of taking down big banks and taking down big corporations and just really knocking it to Wall Street. And so it's going to be interesting to see because they're not being bought in by anybody. They're being bought in by the American people, so Bernie raised $6 million in under 24 hours, just about 24 hours, and the average donation was $27, Average donation was $27, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Wow. So, that's a lot of people donating to Bernie Sanders, and that's a lot of average day Americans,
Wow.
But he could make it through 4 years, I think.
I think so as well,
He
but
would
I
be
don't think that
82.
But I mean, since we're leaving to be 100,
Sorry, not ages.
105.
I know. I'm gonna be 100 myself. But anyways, yes, 105.
I just worry that people just can't get behind him. And we are so polarized now that we live in a world of identity politics. And so people are so stuck in their ways of their political identity is something that is part of their identity. And they, it's ingrained in who they are. And so to ask someone to switch that, especially Republicans are amazing at messaging.
Right.
They can really message their way. And Democrats aren't always the best at that.
Right.
But they can govern very well. But Republicans can just message their way out of anything, really. And the language that they use, because they feel like there's no consequences to it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think that just watching, it would just be a messy, messy campaign. Just watching that Bernie go up against Trump. Anyone going up against Trump is going to be a messy, messy campaign.
I really hope that we can. I know. I want us to rise above that. Like I think that we should hold ourselves to a higher standard of just interacting professionally, politically. Like I think it's really, for lack of a better term, deplorable to see like our elected leaders governing them or conducting themselves in that manner.
I will say that politics has always been a petty mess.
Yes.
More people are paying attention now, and it is a lot like heightened, and it's a lot pettier. But it's not like things were regular order all the time. Like,
Right.
It has always been petty, like from day one. And so more people are paying attention now, which is the only way to, change and move and evolve.
I think everyone is just ready for Trump to be done. So the first person who seems like they are just like, if you offer me Jolly Ranchers, I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
There's.
What do you think about? I think either way, even if he's elected another 4 years or if he only serves one term, he is the president now, and he will always have been the president of the United States.
Right.
That doesn't go away.
Yeah.
Where do you think we are in like the forecasted future? Like, let's talk about politics in the next 10 years. Like, what are some things that you definitely see changing? Things you see coming on the horizon? There's a lot of, as I assume there would be in any time in history, there's always like a bunch of things coming forth.
Right.
If we were to look at politics at the 90s, it's like, okay, post-AIDS crisis, there's gay rights, and post, Desert Storm and all that sort of stuff, there's all these other things that are happening. What do you see happening in the next coming little bit of time?
Well, first of all, if we don't tackle climate change now, there's not going to be another 10 years. So, there will be 10 years, but, it will just be absolute turmoil. One thing that I do see is, good point that you made, the 90s coming out of the AIDS crisis and, really seeing the evolving of gay rights. We're the generation, millennials are the generation of school shootings.
Yeah.
Pete Buttigieg, he's actually the mayor of South Bend, Indiana. He's running for president. He's an, kind of unknown candidate, but he has a really cool grassroots campaign running. And, that's kind of a line taken from him, is that we're the generation of, students who lived through mass shootings and lived through school shootings to a point where it's something normal to our lives. And that when you see every other day in America that there's, a shooting, you're like, I'm not surprised. You kind of
not surprised. Yeah.
You just really lose that, that shock factor. And I think that will really play a part as more young people start to, come of age into politics. And you see what the teenagers in Parkland, Florida were able to, with the March for Our Lives, what they were able to organize and what they're still able to do, a year later after, suffering a horrific tragedy, really just pushing for it and holding legislators accountable is a really, really important thing.
So you think coming up, we've got some gun control change that's going to be
Yeah, absolutely. And also we're a generation where we're in trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars of college debt. People, we're going to make less than our parents. We're the first generation that's going to make less than our parents would, and tens of thousands of dollars in debt for a public university. It's.
So you think there'll be some change as well as far as student loans?
Holding people accountable.
Well, this conversation was powerful. I learned a lot. Where can we follow you on your social medias?
I'm not really online a lot, but something that I can say is that you have to vote. You have to get involved. Change happens by those who show up. And I see a lot of people, angry online about what's happening. But if you are angry and you don't vote, you're silent. And being silent is being complicit. And so vote, get informed, listen to a podcast, really get out there and let your voice be heard. Because if not, then you don't really have a right to complain about, the situation that we're in. You really have to vote your way out of it.
Facts. Well, thank you, Maura, for joining us. This was a much-needed conversation, and hopefully we have inspired millennials to get informed and get involved.